Well, hello and welcome to Conversations. It has been said that there is no greater calling than helping other people, and that is what our guest today has done throughout his career. Jericho Way is the only day resource center for the homeless here in Central Arkansas, and today its director James Evans-Hammond joins us for a conversation. James, welcome. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Chris.
You know, when I reached out to you about doing this a few weeks ago, I got the sense that you probably still had a lot of unpacked boxes in your office. You're very new to Jericho Way.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. This is my fourth week that I'm finishing up.
Okay, so I'm sure the learning curve has been steep, but rewarding at this point?
Very much so. I had been working at a nonprofit before, but stepping over to Jericho Way, it is a different organization, but I'm still working with the same population, those individuals that have been faced with homelessness.
Right. Well, I want to talk a lot about what you're doing at Jericho Way and about your career in social work as well, but let's start by getting a sense for the scope of the homeless crisis in Central Arkansas. Mm-hmm. How many unsheltered people do we think are in the community, and what are the root causes of that you see kind of over and over mm-hmm. again?
Good question. Estimated about 1,200 people are homeless in Central Arkansas on any given night, mm-hmm. and you can pretty much guess that about half of those are unsheltered. And there's different things that contribute to that. There are the lack of mental health services, because a lot of our individuals that we meet with that are homeless and unsheltered, they do suffer from serious mental illness, and there is a direct correlation between serious mental illness and homelessness. There's also the lack of resources available for health care. There's the lack of resources for lack of affordable housing, the lack of prioritization for affordable housing, and lack of access to quality education, food insecurities. All those things contribute.
Yeah, all of those things too that you mentioned, I'm sure were exacerbated by this pandemic that we're now 2 full years into. COVID must have taken a terrible toll on this very vulnerable community. Right?
It did, because the resources that were available got affected, so the access to those has been even harder. Mm-hmm. Then we also are seeing people, because they have been faced with eviction, so we're seeing people that have never entered into homelessness before that have entered into homelessness now. And so really helping those individuals is a priority, because navigating the homeless community is difficult and it is very traumatizing. Mm-hmm. So to be able to be there for those individuals and help them, any way possible is necessary.
Yeah. What do you think people most misunderstand about people who find themselves in homelessness?
One thing is that I feel that as a society that it is often viewed that homelessness is an individual problem, when it is a societal problem. I mean, homelessness can be solved. Poverty is man-made. I mean, if we look at the big picture. So I think that is the main thing, is the way it's viewed, that it is just an individual, that there's something wrong with that person, when it's the society. I mean, you've got to see what contributed to that person being in that situation to understand why they're there.
It also seems that these people come from all walks of life mm-hmm. as well. They're veterans, mm-hmm. they're entire family units, mm-hmm. there are students, young people who are on their own. You see all kinds, I imagine.
Yeah. Absolutely. All different walks of life. I mean, you cannot generalize a homeless individual. You can't generalize that at all. I mean, like I said, we do often see if the serious mental illness was not there first, entering into homelessness is traumatizing and can trigger that as well. Mm-hmm. And then people often self-medicate. So if substance use wasn't was not a contributing factor to them entering into homelessness, that substance use will often follow, because they're finding ways to self-medicate. So
people, I think, also don't realize that many people who are homeless work. They have mm-hmm. jobs, mm-hmm. but one of the problems they have is affording housing, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think anyone can deny that we have a lack of safe and affordable housing. And that's not just Little Rock, that is nationwide. Mm-hmm. And then, because Jericho Way, DePaul, USA, and Jericho operates Jericho Way. And they care so much about housing that we've even built housing.
Yes.
And we're talking about trying to, build more housing, and the cost to build that housing has skyrocketed, and that is also attributed to the pandemic. So to be able to build safe and affordable housing is even harder to do. So it's got to be prioritized by our mayor, by our city officials. We're going to have to find funding for more safe and affordable housing.
I do want to get into that with you, but one response I know to the pandemic was the federal eviction moratorium, which allowed millions of people around the country to stay in stable housing even if they had lost their jobs. It was lifted back in the fall. I'm wondering if here in Little Rock you saw an impact of that moratorium coming to an end.
I think if a lot of us, one way we can actually all see it is if you drive around some of the communities, especially there around Jericho Way, and even places that I've never seen them pop up before. You were seeing those encampments, those tents.
Right.
We're seeing individuals that that are choosing not to go into the shelter, and to me, that's one way. I'm seeing more and more of them popping up, like behind buildings where I didn't used to see them, and then the problem with that, we have shelters, and often we have enough shelter beds available in the city, but we don't have we need more shelter beds and no barrier, safe shelters that allow for couples, that allow for pets, that allow for people with different gender identities, with different sexual orientations, where they can go and feel safe. So seeing that, I'm seeing lots and lots more people. You can look at intersections. We're noticing more panhandlers. And it's speaking for itself, really, and how the pandemic has affected those.
You mentioned there are enough beds, and I know Jericho Way is a day center, and we'll get to that, but you mentioned there are enough beds, and yet I read that most overnight shelters in Little Rock are at 99% capacity almost all the time.
The Compassion Center tends to find ways to fit more people in, and it's not about and then we've got the Salvation Army, we've got Nehemiah, we've got Our House, and we've got other faith-based organizations that do small-scale shelter. But there's just not enough for those individuals. There wouldn't be enough if every individual chose to go into a shelter, but the people that choose not to go in there that's come from the people that are staying in the encampments and on the streets that are telling us the reasons they're not going into those shelters.
Well, let's talk about the work that you are doing at Jericho Way. When people walk through the doors there each day, what do they find? What are the services that you have available?
Okay, we have quite an array of services, and they can start with just the basics of getting the breakfast and the lunch. Accessing hygiene services such as showers, laundry, a physical address to receive mail, access to phones and computers. We also have a clothing closet, but then our big thing is that we have case management. Yeah. So any individual that walks up to Jericho and asks for case management, that the goal is permanent housing, to get them out of homelessness. And so we've got 3 hardworking case managers that immediately get to addressing what it is that individual needs to be able to get ready for permanent housing. And that can be ID documents, that can be proof of income, helping them get income, access to income. We can assist with that, whether it be employment, whether it be applying for disability benefits. We also have transportation assistance. We partnered with the Transportation Alliance program, which is the collaboration with the Arkansas Homeless Coalition and Rock Region Metro to provide free bus passes to homeless individuals. We also can help furnish the homes. We've got a wonderful local nonprofit called Settle Souls that everyone that's housed out of Jericho Way, they provide a house full of furniture for that individual, for that family or that person. Mm-hmm. We also have Pax Christi, which is a wonderful ministry that also does a food starter kit. So we're doing everything, and also when you sign up for case management, because we only have a capacity and a scope to go so far to provide assistance. We can help that person get into permanent housing, but we're also trying to help them get the stabilization services they need. Mm-hmm. Some call it wraparound, some call it holistic, but we're trying to not just house that person, but also make sure that person is stable. And we're also working, if they need access to, access to getting employment or whatever it is to be able to maintain and sustain, we provide that.
Wow. So I imagine you have some people who come in and they're happy just to have a meal and just to maybe get some warm clothes. But those who commit to case management, they're really trying to affect real change in their lives. From a service perspective, do you differentiate between those two, or are you just happy to provide whatever services people need in that moment?
Both. I mean, we don't expect anyone to come there to sign up for case management services to get access to those basic needs. You know, those individuals may already have a plan that they're working on their own, and that's all that they're needing is just a meal or just a place to take a shower before they go to work or things like that. So it's the individuals that are truly ready to go into housing, permanent housing, and can get out of homelessness.
I know that back a few weeks ago during the winter storm, you all were kind of asked to go above and beyond what you normally do. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, that was it. I hated the fact that we closed on Thursday, but it was just impossible for us, most of us that go there, to get out of our homes. And so the city reached out to me, or Harriet from the mayor's office reached out first and asked, you know, if we could provide emergency personnel to transport y'all to work, would y'all open it? And I immediately said yes. Reached out to all my staff to make sure they were all okay with it. And it was really, it was great. All my staff were able to come in. We were safely transported there, and then we opened all day, because we're normally 7:30 to 2:30. We opened all day to provide that warming center until the Dunbar Center opened at night.
Well, very impressive effort.
Yes.
On behalf
and it
of
was,
Jericho
you know,
Way.
it was important because we wanted to make sure that everyone was safe that was there as well.
Right, no doubt. As we mentioned, you're the only day resource center in Central Arkansas. For all the services you're talking about, you're the only place that can provide them. Operated by DePaul USA in partnership with the City of Little Rock.
Yes.
What do you need more of? How can the City of Little Rock, for instance, step up and do more to help Jericho Way?
As far as helping Jericho Way, they do a lot. They're our largest donor. I mean, we benefit from each other with that private partnership that we have. They definitely do a lot for us already. It's not, I don't think it's so much that they could do for us. It's truly the mayor and the city officials prioritizing the funding for more safe and affordable housing. That's how they can help us at Jericho Way, is help us help those find a safe place to live.
Right. Is there more that can be done within the business community in Little Rock, or just with everyday people, volunteers? What do you need along those lines?
Well, because we are a nonprofit, we do rely on volunteers, we rely on donors, and we ask everybody, you know, to help your local nonprofits. We can always benefit from more money because that'll just allow us to do more. We can always benefit from someone that if they can't give money or not comfortable giving, you know, financial contributions, you know, help us with those material needs. You know, help us when we're running low on clothes. You know, because we do give a lot of clothes away, and we always typically need specific sizes. We've posted on our social media, Facebook and Instagram, and we also keep a list of donors that we can reach out to, our volunteers and donors that we can reach out to provide those material needs. You know, it may be hygiene products, it may be clothing, things like that. PPEs. The other day we got very low on masks, and we just did a call out, you know, between Facebook and the people that we know that we can typically rely on. And before we knew it, you know, we had more masks than we could use in a whole month, which was wonderful. The city's great at providing things like that too, if we know in plenty of time. But it's like one of those, you get so busy and all of a sudden you don't realize that you've run low. But a third way that people can help is by donating time. You know, because we are partly staffed with volunteers, and we have a wonderful group of volunteers that are there. Pretty much we have volunteers every day of the week helping out in different ways.
3000 Springer Drive is the address.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
You grew up in Northeast Arkansas. You
Yes.
earned your master's in social work. I know you were part of Lucy's Place, working on homelessness among the LGBTQ community, and St. Francis House, where you worked with homeless veterans, and now Jericho Way. What attracts you to this kind of work?
When I first started, when I was working in the mental health field and I was working at a behavioral health hospital, I started realizing that, and I've worked with individuals that had serious mental illness, and I started realizing that a lot of the patients that I was seeing regularly were homeless or indigent patients, and they were being discharged with only 7 days worth of medication and no way to get access to more medication, so their symptoms would return and they would return to the hospital. And I started talking to those patients and getting to know those patients, and they started talking to me about what they would do once they got out on the street. And so I started volunteering at one of the resource centers that they would always mention. And I started doing intake counseling, and I started to, it felt good to start helping these people a little bit more. And then I wanted to be able to do that professionally. And so the place that I was working for was ran by a social worker, and she actually steered me towards that because I was going to get my master's degree in psychology and just continue with mental health and behavioral health. But she's just like, James, it's social work that you are wanting to do. When I told her what I really wanted to do was be able to help people and help those with mental illness. And so she kind of mentored me that way, and I got my master's in social work, moved back over here across the river, Central Arkansas, because I had received my undergraduate degree at UCA. So I was fond of being here and being back in Arkansas, and so I started volunteering as soon as I got here at Lucy's Place and at St. Francis House, and then St. Francis House hired me during that volunteer internship when I was receiving my master's degree, and that's how I started working primarily with homeless veterans.
I know it's got to be hard work. How big a challenge is it? And not just for you, but for anyone who is in this line of work, giving of themselves to help others who are facing challenges?
I think the most frustrating part is that there is just that lack of resources that we need to be able to provide all those services to those individuals, because it's complicated. Those individuals' lives are complicated. Something's contributed to it, and once we start working with them and they start disclosing, and we start assessing and seeing the things that are contributing to it, being able to refer those individuals to those needed services like mental health services and stuff like that. That's what's frustrating, is just the lack of stuff out there.
How do you define, at the end of the day, how do you define success?
So this career, it is a selfish career, and I think I told you that. It is a selfish career because we're giving back, and you get that good feeling when you see people that you've helped succeed. And so I have a really great assistant director at Jericho Way, Tish, and she and I one day, it was a Wednesday, I remember it was a Wednesday, and we were discussing what had already gone on that week, because we were like, it's only Wednesday. We weren't complaining at all, it was more just absorbing it and taking it all in, and what we had concluded was that we had assisted 3 individuals that had shown up at our door at Jericho to reconnect with their family. We had 3 individuals that we were able, one mother had not seen her son in a year, and he was suffering from, symptoms of his serious mental illness, and he wasn't just really able to be in a place to actually reach out to her. So we were able to talk to him, work with him, and work with other people and connect him to his mother, and he got safely, someone to safely take care of him and help him along. And so that was very rewarding. We both were like, this has been a great week.
That's success.
That's success.
Yeah. Your parent company's mission, DePaul USA, is to, quote, end homelessness and change the lives of those affected by it. Are you optimistic that that's something that really can happen someday?
Well, it's happening. It's happening. I wish it could happen to more and quicker, with access to more resources. I know I keep going back to the same thing and just beating that. But we could do more. And we're slowly doing it, by building more affordable housing, by assisting those individuals that come to us out of homelessness. I think a lot of it, we've got to be held accountable, and we are partnering, with the homeless. It's a group, a continuum of care of individuals that provide homeless resources, housing resources, and homeless resources. And we meet, and we've partnered up with an organization called Built for Zero. And what it does is it holds communities accountable for the services that they're providing to individuals to get out of homelessness. And I agree with this I agree with their mission, which is to not count success by program outcomes, but to count it by how many people are still experiencing homelessness. Success is reducing those numbers. Success is reducing those numbers of individuals that are experiencing homelessness. And so it's not just the fact that, we can't count it by just the fact that we house somebody, but we may house somebody, but that individual may not have what they need to be able to maintain that housing and may end up homeless within a month or two. And so they're back into the population. And so, but we're still counting it as a program success because we can say that we successfully house somebody. That's not the way it is. Until we see the numbers reduce on the streets and in the shelters and under the bridges and in the encampments, we're not it's not successful. So we've got to be held accountable for that.
Okay. Well, James, thank you for all your hard work in the community and
Thank
for
you,
the
Chris.
conversation
Thank you,
as well.
Chris.
So great to be with you today. Enjoyed it. Well, our guest has been James Evans-Hammond, the program director at Jericho Way here in Little Rock. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the page. And if you have guests that you'd like to see here on Conversations, let us know there in the comments. That's it for now. I'm Chris May. We'll see you for our next conversation.